It's very exciting to be here today. I've never come to one of these events, but I'm very impressed with the turnout. I have to say, it's quite a daunting audience to be facing. Essentially, the main aim of the next 10 years is to try and get from about 55% of our patients being diagnosed in stage 1 and 2 to about 75% of our patients getting diagnosed in stages 1 and 2. Stages 1 and 2 tend to be the curative end of treatment, where patients need less treatment, less morbidity long term, and stages 3 and 4, the patients have to go through a lot more before they potentially face local control or cure, and clearly we're trying to cure more of our patients.
So earlier diagnosis. So for many cancers, it's not always black and white, but for many cancers, earlier diagnosis does lead to better treatment options and better outcomes. And it is the best thing we can do in the UK. So if we improve stage at diagnosis, it's going to have this more significant outcomes for people living with cancer. It is a priority in the long-term plan, I guess I was intending to write there. And so we do need to reduce delays, but why do these delays occur? And I could spend so much time on these next slides, but time's not permitting. But again, it's just to get us reflecting on why delays occur. So this slide and this next slide by CR UK, they're just really looking at where the delays occur in that cancer pathway. So again, it might be worth having a look at these when you're at home. But I also want to briefly mention this tool. It's an electronic safety netting tool. So it's a digital safety netting tool within EMIS Web. You'll get the slides. The instructions are on there how to use it. It was developed by one of our Macmillan-funded GPs within one of the Cancer Alliances in London, and it's fantastic. It's a whole team tool, so it's not just for GPs to use. It's the GP capacity is pretty much nothing. It's clicking on a few buttons, and then non-clinical people can follow it up, and it's fantastic. So please go away and spend some time on that.
Not uncommon. It's the 11th most common cancer in the UK, and this is data from about 2016. Incidence is relatively static. It's not dramatically changing, but you can see that we have about 10,000 cases of pancreatic cancer diagnosed per annum, and a large proportion of those die. So it's the 5th biggest cancer killer, despite being the 11th most common. So you saw some lovely data about how the 5-year survival rates are increasing in many of the upper GI cancers. And sadly, in pancreatic cancer, the 5-year survival of 7% has really largely remained unchanged, dating back 10, 15 years. Many of our patients with pancreatic cancer present late, so 80 to 90% of our patients will be late diagnoses. And our only chance of cure really is an early diagnosis where we're able to offer a Whipple's procedure, and that's no small procedure in itself. But why do we diagnose these patients late? Well, sadly, early pancreatic cancer may be entirely asymptomatic. We don't get any symptoms at all, depending on the site of the tumour. So adenocarcinoma is more common in the head of the pancreas. We rely on it obstructing, causing jaundice or causing problems for our patients to develop symptoms and for us to act. So if you have tumours in the body and the tail, then largely they produce no symptoms at all until very late. And when you're starting to get systemic symptoms, then these symptoms are often vague. They can be intermittent, which sometimes I think falsely reassures us. But of course, by the time you're getting systemic symptoms of weight loss and often jaundice, you're potentially already in the later stages of cancer.
We decided that in order to improve our referral rate, because we were always being told by secondary care that the GPs didn't tell the patients they might have cancer and they didn't turn up, and there were lots of DNAs and things. So in order to try and work on that and improve our referral rates, we introduced mandatory 2-week wait forms, which were integrated into the IT system for the GPs. And we ensured that all the guidance that came out with the NG12, with agreement with our various various specialists was in the form. Eventually what happened was the forms were adopted as being part of a sensible process. It allowed the GPs to know what they should be looking for and how they should be referring in, and it also allowed us to tighten up the pathways. The reason it's important for the scan is because you have all your tumour sites and you know what you're supposed to be referring to where, and you know how you're supposed to be referring it. But then, as a GP, you just know when you see people sometimes that they've got cancer or there's something that you've got to send in, and you can't find the right way to send them in. So what tends to happen is that these patients bounce around the system and they cost a lot of money, and it's very stressful for you. It's even more stressful for the patient, and you end up with patients who are quite poorly served, and eventually they might get to where they need to be, but it's not a great service. And the biggest cohort, if you like, of patients with these problems are the ones with the vague symptoms. So as part of our initial sort of get-together, we decided that we would concentrate on the vague symptom pathway, and it coincided very well with the ACE Wave 2 cohort that was coming out from CRUK. So this was money that was specifically for looking at improvements in getting patients with vague symptoms into the system.
So the results so far, so different snapshots of different kind of bits of the data set. This is where we are in terms of referrals as of Monday, the 4th of November. Almost 2,000 referrals, so almost time to have some sort of celebration, although 305 have been rejected for not meeting the referral criteria. That's normally an age issue or because there's a more appropriate pathway for the specific clinical presentation. We've scanned about 1,500. We've got a conversion rate of around 9%, could be close to 10% if all the further investigations are being cleared. So when you think about a 2-week wait pathway being, I don't know, about 7%, but dropping since the new guidelines, so hitting more like 5%, 4%, and we've got quite a good pickup rate, quite a good conversion rate. That's probably because we're looking across cancer sites, symptoms that are relevant to more than one cancer site. So there is a need to investigate for cancer in this group of patients. Who are they, these patients? You'd probably expect, there's pretty much equal males, females, over 60, a mixture of demographics. On the whole, weight loss and gut feeling are the two most common reasons for referral. What happens once they've been referred? So the long bar along the bottom is most get sent into the third stage of the pathway, the MDC. But the rest of that graphic is to show that there are a lot of patients that are diverted into other more appropriate specialties after the first test. So after the CT and the baseline testing, patients are sent into a more appropriate specialty. If something's found, they're not sent back to the GP, they're sent straight into a specialty. So hopefully getting patients seen in the right place as quickly as possible.
This is the patient bit. My name's Martin Wells. I'm a stage 4 melanoma patient. And I've been asked to come here and tell you a little bit about the story that's put me on this stage. Really, it starts in February 2017. It's been interesting hearing some of these stories because some of the things that I've heard people talking about are familiar to the experience I've had myself. Because in February 2017, I woke up one morning and my wife said, "Oh, you got a bit of blood on your back there." Couldn't see it, didn't think anything of it, and thought, maybe I just caught a mole or something like that on a towel after my shower. The following week, woke up one morning, a couple of blots of blood on the bed sheets this time, and I thought, okay, well, being the man, what shall I do? Not do anything about it and ignore it for a couple of days. And the third time it happened, my wife said, "Do you want me to phone the doctors and book an appointment for you?" Yeah. And I remember the dermatologist at the time, he rolled forward in his chair and came to that 6-inch comfort gap that we all have, that we all start backing off from. He sat right on the edge, looked me in the eye, and then he told me the bad news. Yes, I had melanoma. I had nodular melanoma. It was deep. It was in my lymphatic channel. And then lots and lots of words came out. And yet again, on a Saturday morning, at about 9 o'clock, I was in another hospital. And because we're now 4 weeks on from when I first found this little pea on my back, the guy removed a lump off the back of the size of a golf ball. My Macmillan team worked really well with the plastic surgeons and the oncology team at the hospital, so much so that it gave me enough time to recover from all these surgeries and go away to Mauritius and get married. So I was really very, very grateful for the service that they give me in that regard. So I thought it'd be a nice thing to go out there and say thank you to Macmillan. I set up a website, got some people involved, and started training for it, and started getting myself fit. That wasn't until March 2018, when I came home one day, and I'd been out running, came home, felt a bit ropey. You remember the snow of March 2018? I'd been out running and that. Came home actually and collapsed, and my wife said to me, "Oh, you're really pale." I said, "Yeah, I don't feel too good whatsoever." So the next morning, phoned up my GPs, got an appointment. GP took one look at me. He goes, "I want you to go straight for an emergency admission." So I went straight up to the local hospital. And must say, I wasn't feeling particularly great. They took me straight in, looked at my medical history, took some bloods, and before you know it, I was in endoscopy because I was losing a lot of blood. Apparently my hemoglobin levels were not very good. And as I got into endoscopy and they lowered the camera in, I could see the reason why straight away. They'd found a cricket ball-sized tumour in my stomach. And we'd been talking about upper GI, right? So the nice upper GI doctor cancelled his list, put me in. And nearly 7 hours later, I emerged from surgery without a stomach as a stage 4 cancer patient, with a PEG-J attached for good measure as well. But pulled through, kept on working with it, and all the scans remained no evidence of disease. So immunotherapy was definitely doing its job. Decided again that I'd probably do something silly again, like walk the Britain's hardest walk, just for fun, for Macmillan in 10 days. In September this year, I took the expedition team up to the Cape Wrath Trail, and on the 10th of September, we reached the lighthouse at Cape Wrath and completed what was a 245-mile walk. It was... Thank you. 11 days, 10 nights overall, all of them wild camping because there ain't no B&Bs up there. The impact and effects of cancer aren't just physical, they're mental as well. I'm proud to say that over the last 2 years, I've raised now £100,000 for Macmillan, so that's a big thank you, guys. Thank you.